Hi everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Mindy. If you're new here, today I'm going to be reviewing the TV show Never Have I Ever, which is Mindy Kaling's show. If you're interested in content like this, feel free to let me know in the comments. I will be happy to make more. I also make fitness videos and college videos, so subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. So before I start, I am pretty sure some of these opinions you will disagree with or might be offended by, and that is totally fine because it's just my opinion. So you can always leave comments in the comment section and I will respond to them, and I try to be as open-minded as possible, so that's why I just want to say that. I want to say that I am Tamilian American. I have grown up in North America for basically most of my life. I've been to India many times for months on end. I have basically my entire family is Tamilian. We all speak fluent Tamil. That's just a little bit of my perspective of the show. I find myself similarly in the main character of the show, Devi's shoes. But yeah, I had quite a few issues with the show. I think the actors are amazing. I think Mindy Kaling is amazing. And I know that for a show to be successful, you have to make it funny and binge-worthy. I think it was definitely binge-worthy. And I think some parts of it were funny, and they had to add comedic elements to make it more dramatic and keep people interested. However, I disagree with some of the things they did, and there were a lot of things I liked as well, so I'm going to talk about both of them. But like I said, if you're offended, that's totally okay. Just leave me a comment and I will try and respond to all of them and listen to all your opinions and thoughts. So yeah, I'm going to first start off with the pros. First of all, I think the actors are all amazing. They're so talented. I think Mindy Kaling is so talented, and I love all the work she's done. I love the Mindy Project. I love her acting. I think they're all really talented people, and I follow all of them on social media. I keep up with them because I think it's really important to see what kind of character they are in real life, like what kind of people they are. So that's just really important to me. Okay, my main point that I really liked is that I think that the representation in this show is better than most other shows. They accurately casted people. Because, for example, the main character, Devi, so her character is supposed to be Tamilian American, and the actor is Tamilian Canadian. Her family is actually from Sri Lanka. I did my research on these things so I could be knowledgeable. But yeah, so I really appreciated them keeping it fairly accurate. I mean, I've seen many occasions where that doesn't happen. For example, To All the Boys I Loved Before, Lana Condor is Vietnamese, but the main character is supposed to be Korean. Also, Lana Condor culturally identifies as white. She was adopted, and she only went to Vietnam after she became an adult. So it's really hard to identify with culture like that. I'm not saying there's, that makes her any less one thing or another, but yeah, it's just, I mean, they incorrectly did a lot of things over there. I think they could have either changed the plotline to make the main character Vietnamese, or they could have done something else there. Also, the character for Paxton, which is one of Devi's love interest in the story, he is Japanese, half Japanese in the show and in real life. So that was nice. They kept it fairly accurate. Good for them. I think any representation is good. When I think of South Asian actors, I can only think of maybe two. I can think of Mindy Kaling, Padma Lakshmi, and that's about it. And if there are more, and I'm sorry I missed them, but the fact is there isn't much representation. So any representation, in my opinion, is like 10 steps forward. And I think the show was 10 steps forward, even though I found a lot of things I didn't necessarily like. I think that this show really did come forward and show that, yeah, there are a bajillion people who would like roles in shows like these, but they don't get opportunities because they will only cast white people, generally speaking, and it's nice for them to just diversify a little bit every now and then. Next, I know this was supposed to be comedic, but also talk about serious things, so I think they tried to make a really good balance, and I think for the most part they did a pretty good job, you know, try to be funny at some parts, then show that there are serious aspects to things, and I don't think all the jokes were funny. Like, there was that one about her wanting a donut, and I think maybe younger audiences would find that funny, but even high school me probably wouldn't find that as entertaining and funny. I mean, the writing was a little, I didn't think all the jokes were that funny. I honestly found myself cringing a little bit and getting second-hand embarrassment, because I don't think people would necessarily say that in real life, and people might think that they do, and I understand if they changed it to make it a little less realistic, to make it more funny, so that I can appreciate, but at the same time, I did want it to be a little bit more realistic, but like I said, this is one of the pros, so I think overall they kept it as funny as possible and were able to intertwine some of the darker / more serious matters. Oh, by the way, this has spoilers in it, so if you're bothered by that, sorry. I don't think the spoilers are that big because I think most of what I expected from the show did end up happening. I was really not surprised, so, but if you were bothered by that, don't watch it ahead. The next thing I wanted to mention is, so Devi's best friends are Fabiola and Elenor, and Elenor basically, she lives with her dad and her stepmom, and her mom left when she was a kid. She went to go to a cruise ship and do some acting and stuff, but she comes back and she's basically been kind of an absentee parent. And what I liked here is there's two sides to this. So at the end of the show, or some part in the first season, the mom ends up coming back, but then she ends up leaving again. And as much as we want to see a happy ending with that, I think it was a good thing that they had the mom leave the show, because we need to have some things that are more realistic. Because with millions of people watching the show, we have to show them that the reality is that when it comes to absentee parents, you can do all you want, but things are not always going to change. And that might be sad, but always showing on these shows that everything turns out alright, and even if your parent is, you know, not the best parent, you can always fix things. Yeah, you can fix things, but there comes a point where, like, it might not always work out. And I think it's good that they show that, yeah, when it comes to absentee parents, things don't always work out, and it sucks, but with a good support system, good family and friends, you know, everything's going to be okay. So I really like how they kept that part very realistic, and you know, they kept the serious stuff, and you know, they show how this stuff affects people, and people keep all these internal battles, and it really sucks, but opening up is a really good way to go. Next, I wanted to say that some of the Indian events were portrayed well. I think the Ganesha Puja was portrayed fairly well. I mean, they usually do it in high schools in the area. All the events are pretty fun, where people will bond with each other and talk after it's over. You know, people will just be hanging out. That kind of stuff. I think that whole event was one of the ones that were portrayed fairly well, and I really appreciated that. Now, on to the cons. So I have a very mixed feeling about all these things, which is why you'll see me going back and forth and be like, yeah, this is good, but I don't really like this. So if that happens, they're not necessarily cons, it's just me not liking everything but having mixed feelings about it. So let's get into it. First of all, the accents. I have to say, for people who have supposedly been in America for 20 years, they have very thick Indian accents. Why do I find this unrealistic? Pretty much everyone in the area I live in, there are many people who have immigrated from abroad, including my own parents, and none of them have as thick Indian accents. The only time they have a thick Indian accent, or even just an Indian accent, is when they speak in another language. Why? Well, my parents told me that the reason that they slowly got rid of their Indian accent is that people found it hard to understand. They used to live in an area that was primarily Caucasian, and now we live in a place that is not. But even then, my parents have a fairly American accent, so I think the over-exaggerated accent wasn't necessarily the best choice. I mean, they could have done it a little lighter, and they could have still gotten the point across, but I don't know. I don't know if that was necessarily a good touch to do. It just, I think it fed a little too much into the stereotypes of what a typical South Indian mom is like. Next, the mispronunciation of certain words. Okay, first of all, the one that, there are two that stick out to me, but I remember multiple times I was like, oh my god, they're saying that wrong, why? They mispronounce words in both English and Tamil. So in Tamil, I remember they saying the word tomato, they were saying something about tomato rice, and they murdered the word for tomato in Tamil, and I was like, oh my god, what, I was like, I just heard that. I rewinded, and I was like, oh my god, they said it wrong. And at first I thought it was the character who, for Devi, maybe they pronounce things differently, because Tamil has many dialects, and she's actually from Sri Lanka, so I figured, okay, maybe it's different. But it was the dad who was speaking Tamil, and I was like, no, this is like just this is just mispronounced. The other thing is, he kept saying Ganesh. It's Ganesh. It's Ganesh. I don't know why that bothers me so much, but it just bothered me. I don't know. Just these small things where they like slowly mispronounce them all the time, and I'm like here's, I have a name that is not easy to say, and the more you correct people, the easier it gets for them to remember. Some people, they get it, you know, really quickly, but that's the same thing here. When you don't correct people, they'll keep saying it like that, and if we go out of our way to say people's names correctly, I think we can go out of our way to correct people about things like this. And I touched on this earlier, but I didn't really enjoy the over-exaggeration of stereotypes. I think Kamala was not necessarily a harmful stereotype, but her character was definitely a stereotype where, you know, an Indian girl comes from America, has a chance to have her first boyfriend, and it's super exciting, and blah blah blah, and all those things, and they made her just come to America and, you know, love American culture so much, but I don't know if that's necessarily the most accurate thing. I have many cousins who have come to America as adults and lived in India all their life, and I don't think they all feel that way, so I don't know, making it seem like everyone does feel that way is maybe not the best thing. Just my opinion though. I also want to say there were some other ideas about Indian culture that were not necessarily portrayed that accurately. For the amount of times that Devi sneaks out, okay, there's a perception that when you lived in a strict household, you might sneak out a lot. And I guess Devi does that. For the amount of times she sneaks out, she's so bad at it. And the punishments that she gets, I have to say, I think that is not necessarily the most accurate thing either. At least they didn't do like hitting. Although I have to say that I've never been hit by my parents, but my parents said that their teachers did with rulers, so that's just a different thing. But the whole grounding thing, I'm sure people get in trouble, but when you don't have a car and you're 15 and your parents pick you up to and from school, like, I mean, my dad always says, like, you're grounded, but that doesn't mean, you can ask any of my friends. Anytime I went to any event ever, my mom would be like, or even just to school, my mom would be like, why is your skirt so short? Or when I went to homecoming, my mom was like, why do you have so much makeup on? Why is your dress so short? Why are you wearing heels? Blah, blah, blah. Trust me, the fact that her mom never once commented on her appearance might not be the most realistic thing, but then she gets in trouble for all these other things. That it's a mix for me of what Indian parents they think Indian parents are like, and then the Indian parent ignoring a lot of things, which is just not accurate personally. Not just personally for me, but from what I've seen from people, making it seem, I don't know if this is a harmful stereotype at all, but I have to say that there were multiple ideas about Indian culture that were not necessarily, I just have to say that many ideas about Indian culture were not necessarily accurate. I mean, that one was the one that kind of bothered me, but probably doesn't bother that many other people. But the other one was when Devi goes to the Ganesha Puja and they're all dancing and she's all like, damn, they must be losers. But I have to say that as someone who has a mix of fitting in with their culture and doesn't, I can't imagine a parent not putting their kids in something culturally relevant to them. For example, I grew up learning dance, singing, and practicing an instrument. I cannot believe our parents didn't do that. That is the most unrealistic thing. Every single one of my friends who are South Indian are a part of at least one of those things. Why? It's a big part of our culture. Making it seem like, oh, she seems like an outsider because she's not a part of that is just unrealistic, because like pretty much everyone I know is a part of something like that. And I don't know if this is harmful, but it definitely makes her seem like more of an outsider, and the fact that none of her friends are really Indian goes with that. But like I said, it's very unrealistic because most families would be a part of that culture, and I'm sure there was just too many elements to push into the show, but I do have to say that was like kind of inaccurate. Okay, next thing, minor, not really culturally related, but why is it so unrealistic that she was cool after being bitten? You do not just become popular after being bitten. In fact, if anything, that would make people hate you more and be like, ew, wow, you're dumb enough to get bitten because you went close enough to a wolf. Like, I don't know. So the biggest issue for me is the whole show tackles her daddy issues by wanting a boyfriend. They don't mention anything in any of the trailers about her dad being dead, but he is. And the whole thing is that, like, she's trying to recover from the grief, and anytime she talks to her therapist was like, I don't think that a man is going to make you happy, but she goes out and does it, and everyone's always encouraging her, no one's discouraging her and being like, hey, you should tackle your grief. And at the end of the show, she gets with the guy, and it makes it seem like all her problems have gone away, and there's resolution with the mom, who she actually gets into a fight with, and it makes it seem like all her daddy issues are gone because she managed to have a solid relationship with this guy, and now they're kissing and they're great. And I don't know if that's a great perception to have. I'm sure there's more to unpack in the second season about that, but I mean, she really hasn't tackled her daddy issues. Like, I mean, she yells at her mom and I'm sure everything's fine and all that, but I like that the therapist was like, no, like, you're not going to be happy, but she blatantly doesn't listen. And obviously when you're a teenager, you might not listen to people who do know better than you. I can admit I never did, but I have to say I don't think it was a great idea for them to portray this whole thing, because at the current time, when there's only one season, this is all we see, people are going to think that it's okay to, like, you can be happy and find love so easily, and that'll like help you avoid all your other problems, and you don't have to worry about your grief issues and your daddy issues. And a lot of people deal with losing a parent, and it sucks. It's horrible. I can't say I can relate to that, but I empathize with that. That's a horrible situation to be in. I would never want to be in that situation. But I have to say that her friends and a lot of people encouraging her to be in a relationship when she hasn't really targeted all this grief and stress that she's dealt with her dad, I don't think that was a good idea. Next thing, being a bad friend. Multiple times throughout the show, she's a bad friend. She chooses this guy she likes over her friends on multiple occasions, and eventually the friends decide to take a break from her. Smart choice. I mean, that's as accurate as possible, but then at the end, they're like, oh my god, we have to help her so that she'll spread her dad's ashes. And I don't know, she apologizes, but then she doesn't become a better friend. So I don't know if resolving the friendship was the best way to go, because like there's a lot that comes from being a bad friend. And I don't know, I've dealt with a lot of bad friends, people I've been friends with for years, and you want to be there for someone when they're going through something, but that doesn't necessarily excuse being a bad friend. Being a bad friend means when someone else is going through something, you're there for them too. Her friends are also going through things. One of her friends is coming out to her family, the other friend is dealing with her mom leaving, and Devi just constantly act like her problems are the center of the world. I mean, she's the center of the show, but I wish I'd seen more character development from her in that sense, making it seem like, oh, despite the fact that she's a bad friend, her friends are still there for her, but she's not there for them. Don't like that. Next, let's talk about how the romance is the most basic plotline of any romance I've ever seen. I saw within the first episode who the love triangle or whatever is going to be, and I would say like 60% of the show is about the romance. And if you want to make 60% of the show about the romance as opposed to her daddy issues, which if you're going to make that a part of the story, then you should have whatever. Moving on. But if you want to make the show so much about romance, then you gotta not pick a more basic plot line. I mean, I understand that you want to build up the romance between the characters, so that's why it's kind of apparent who's gonna get with who. At the same time, it was just, it's like every other story I've ever read or watched or seen. It's like the same love triangle into all the boys I've loved before. It's just like, try something new with the romance tropes, you know. Next, running away. I have to say her running away was probably the most unrealistic thing ever. Anyone I know who's ever run away, especially when they know that your parents are just not abusive, because that's a totally different situation, and everyone knows that Devi's mom is not abusive, so her running away for a week and staying with her family, her friend's family, was like the most unrealistic thing. Because if I ever ran away, or if any of my friends ever ran away, they would be like, sweetie, you need to go home, you're being dumb. And anytime I even, like when I'm mad and I run away to the park, you bet I get like 200 phone calls. I think that was the most unrealistic thing. I have to say though, I've never said anything as like nasty as Devi has, but yeah, her running away was as unrealistic as it could ever get, because I have never heard of anyone running away. Maybe I'm just lucky to be in such a great situation, but based on someone who has been in similar situations to her, I have to say that of the many times I've run away, I have never been able to stay at a friend's house overnight. Not just because I don't have rich friends whose parents are lawyers for 2 Chainz, but also because that's unrealistic. My mom would murder me if I was gone for the night, and I could never just be like, hey mom, I'm mad at you, so I'm gonna stay at my friend's house. Like, I thought that was really unrealistic, and if now little Indian girls watching the show think that they can do that, good grief. That's all I have to say. Next. Drinking and not getting into trouble. Okay, so she gets into trouble with her mom when she goes to that one party, but when she drinks at the UN thing, the teacher does not get her in trouble. Why? This has nothing to do with culture, I have to say, but why? Why did the teachers go, oh my god, just get out of the room? Like, that was dumb. There's no way the school wouldn't have given her punishment for drinking. So there's a mix of minor things in there and major things in there. I also have to say the show was 20 steps forward. I really think so. I like that there's more representation, and the fact that so many people applied for it means a lot of people want roles like this out here in the world, and I think it's opening eyes, and it's really popular, the show, and yeah, it's just opening a lot of opportunities and boundaries that people haven't seen, and opening up hopefully more roles for people, so I really appreciate that. Even though I found a lot of issues with it, I'm definitely gonna watch season 2. I binged season 1. Part of the cringiness made me want to keep watching, and all the secondhand embarrassment of things that basically she said that no one would ever say in their entire life. Despite all of that, on some level, even though it was very unrealistic and these are not things that people would necessarily say, I related to some of the characters at sometimes, you know, not knowing what your culture is like even though you relate to it a lot, and figuring out the line between explaining some cultural things to your friends. Like, there was a lot of stuff that I liked and related to, so I appreciated that. Like I said, still subtle things that they could improve for hopefully season 2, so I'm looking forward to seeing that, because like I said, 20 steps forward. It's smart that they were able to make it so bingey that despite the fact that you might not necessarily like everything, especially within the first few episodes, it can get better, and it was mediocre writing. I think the jokes and lines may not be the best things, but I still like the show. It was bingey to watch. I don't know what it is. Like, I've watched so many shows that are not great, but they're just bingey to watch, and so I watch them, and so far it's been like that. Like I said, I love the actors. I am in great admiration of actors like Mindy, so I really loved the show. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I also have an Instagram and a podcast and a Skillshare class, so feel free to check all of those out. Otherwise, I hope you guys all have a great day. Bye!